Paranoia is a highly effective tool. If you are truthfully unwell, society eventually stops listening to you. But if you are not, if you have simply seen something you shouldn't have, branding you as a paranoid is a brilliant way to engineer the exact same outcome. Consider Ernest Hemingway, one of the most celebrated writers in history. In his final years, he told his wife, his friends, and his doctors that the FBI was watching his every move. He believed they were tapping his phones and intercepting his mail. Naturally, everyone around him thought he had lost his mind. He was subjected to multiple rounds of electroshock therapy to cure his delusion, treatments that destroyed his memory and his ability to write. He took his own life shortly after. Years later, a Freedom of Information Act request unearthed a massive file signed by J. Edgar Hoover himself. Hemingway wasn't crazy. The FBI had been intensely monitoring him for decades, wiretapping his life due to his ties in Cuba and the anti-war messaging in his novels. They drove a brilliant man to his breaking point simply by letting everyone believe he was insane. That is the Gaslight Protocol. Once that label is applied, no amount of credibility can save you. Take Ted Gunderson. He wasn't a fringe outsider broadcasting from a basement. He was the former head of the FBI's Los Angeles field office. A man with deep intelligence experience who was once in line to be the FBI director. Yet, when he retired, he began speaking out about systematic blackmail operations and elite child trafficking rings connected to intelligence agencies. He was immediately dismissed. That was in the 1980s, the era of the Satanic Panic, and Gunderson was lumped in with the mass hysteria. They called him a crackpot, desperate for attention. One of his most horrifying claims centered around a religious group in Washington, D.C. known as the Finders. Gunderson alleged they were a CIA-linked child kidnapping organization. In 1987, police in Florida found 6 filthy bug-bitten children in a park accompanied by 2 well-dressed men who could not explain whose children they were. The investigation led back to a property where authorities found instructions for purchasing, training, and kidnapping children. Then, the investigation was hastily and inexplicably shut down. Anyone who repeated Gunderson's claims about intelligence involvement was immediately discredited. It took over 30 years for the truth to surface. In 2019, the FBI declassified 650 pages confirming exactly what Gunderson had said. The CIA was involved. The State Department had mysteriously helped bury the investigation. A former member admitted to doing security work for government agencies, and the group's founding leader's wife had been a CIA employee for 21 years. Gunderson was right. But he died long before the files were released, taking his ruined reputation to the grave with him. Now, this systematic erasure isn't limited to the dark corners of intelligence operations. Sometimes the threat is entirely corporate, and the damage is infinitely more widespread. In 1998, a West Virginia farmer approached Robert Bilott, a corporate defense lawyer in Cincinnati. The farmer's cattle were dying. They were foaming at the mouth. Their teeth were turning black, and massive tumors were growing out of their sides. The farmer had horrifying home video footage of the animals stumbling and collapsing near a creek that ran downstream from a landfill owned by the chemical giant DuPont. Of course, no one wanted to touch this case, because DuPont owned the town. But Bilott started pulling at the thread, and what he found shifted the narrative from a localized tragedy to a global nightmare. Internal documents revealed a chemical called PFOA or C8 used in manufacturing Teflon, the non-stick coating on everyday household items. DuPont had been dumping this synthetic chemical into the local water supply. Their own hidden studies showed they knew exactly what it did. They found elevated cancer rates in their factory workers. They tested pregnant employees and found the chemical in their unborn children. They knew it accumulated in human tissue, and they knew it never broke down, ever. When Bulat tried to sound the alarm, he was fighting a multi-billion-dollar machine. It was a 25-year legal war where the initial claims were met with the usual tactics: deny, delay, and discredit. But the science was undeniable. What started with a farmer's dying cattle led to the chilling realization that these forever chemicals have leached into the rain, the food supply, and the tap water globally. Today, because of corporate negligence, those chemicals are currently in the blood of 98% of the human population. You see, when intelligence agencies or powerful corporations face exposure, the tactics vary. Of course, discrediting the whistleblower is step one. But there is a darker, more clinical pattern that emerges when reputations can't be ruined fast enough. A pattern of convenient fatalities. Gary Webb was a journalist who proved the CIA knowingly allowed drug traffickers to funnel crack cocaine into Los Angeles communities during the 1980s crack cocaine epidemic. He provided evidence to prove that the CIA was mainly the one responsible for this epidemic. Major newspapers coordinated to destroy his credibility. His editors abandoned him. Gary had lost everything. And in 2004, he was found dead with 2 gunshot wounds to the head. The official ruling? Self-inflicted. Years later, the CIA's own Inspector General confirmed his reporting was entirely accurate. Now let's look at another similar instance. David Kelly, one of the UK's top weapons experts, told a journalist that the government was hyping up the case for invading Iraq. He was publicly outed, dragged before the parliament, and then found dead in the woods, also ruled self-inflicted. A public inquiry later confirmed his warnings, and medical professionals heavily doubted the official cause of his death. This isn't just a theory of conspiracy. There is a pattern here. In 2024, John Barnett, a quality manager at Boeing, raised serious concerns about safety shortcuts on the 737 MAX production line. Right in the middle of his whistleblower lawsuit against the company, he was found dead in his car. The ruling, again, was self-inflicted. Time after time, the cycle repeats. Someone notices the anomaly. They speak out. They are called crazy, stripped of their career, and pushed to the margins of society, or worse. Then, decades later, a document surfaces, a court rules, or a file is declassified, and the lie or the conspiracy is suddenly acknowledged as the truth. However, the most disturbing part isn't just that these things happen. It's how quickly society forgets. You see, we absorb the classified horrors, the surveillance, the buried trafficking rings, the poisoned water, and we simply adjust our baseline. The bar for what shocks us keeps getting higher. The line between insanity and foresight is razor thin, usually separated only by time and a Freedom of Information Act request. So look at the official narratives driving our world today. Which of today's crazy theories are just waiting for the files to be declassified tomorrow?